Welcome to the Encouragement for Work podcast with your host, Mark Griffin, founder and owner of In His Name HR. Each week, Mark interviews nationally known thought leaders from corporate America, higher education, churches, and ministries. His goal is to bring you great ideas that help engage your employees, shift your culture toward higher performance, and increase employee loyalty at the organization you lead. Each episode features an idea or process that's made a tremendous impact on employees and employers alike. Now sit back, relax, and listen in as he delivers encouragement today through this episode's special guest.
Hello and welcome to the Encouragement for Work podcast. I'm your host, Mark Griffin. Today I am just so excited to have my good friend, Becca Spradlin, on the Encouragement for Work podcast as we navigate the topic of mission drift. Becca is an author, a speaker, a consultant in this area of organizational development, and we are so excited to hear about how her book has been launched, but also most importantly, how it's made effects in the organizations in which the people are reading and using the book. Becca, welcome to the Encouragement for Work podcast. Would you like to tell the audience a little bit about your background, your experience, and what God put on your heart to author this book?
Yes, my pleasure. Great to be with you, Mark. And thanks for having me. My name's Becca Spradlin. I serve with On Mission Advisors, and we exist to help faith-driven leaders in the nonprofit and for-profit sector, higher education, foundations, define, protect, and champion what matters most. And so you and I know that means it's about the mission. How do we make sure there is mission clarity, mission alignment in organizations? HR is a huge part of that, obviously. So we do consulting work for organizations, and over the years, we've had the privilege of working a lot of different organizations, and a lot of those learnings got compiled into Lead on Mission, which is the book you mentioned. And this really seeks to give case studies actually from the business sector of faith-driven, owned, operated organizations, how they integrate faith in their work and cultivate that, but also how do they avoid mission drift over time? And that's all about the people and the practices and the rhythms, which you can dive into more. But it's meant to give case studies for faith-driven entrepreneurs, investors, leaders, of how to live out your faith in the workplace, but also how do you make sure that it outlasts you. So a lot of great cases in there, great organizations, as well as some cautionary tales of those that drifted, what happened in those, and what can we learn in terms of practices for our own companies?
That's exciting. Let's help our listeners out a little bit. We have many listeners know a lot about mission, vision, values. They're building that into their organizations. They're building it into their HR practices. But there's also some listeners that aren't really sure what a mission, the vision, values is. A mission we define at IHNHR is pretty much what you do every day and why you do it and what you're delivering on for your customers, your vendors, or if it's a church or a ministry. How would you define mission for our listeners to help them understand as you answer some further questions?
Well, we'll take a step back further than that, because often when I'm working with organizations, we're looking at everything. You said absolutely, it's reflected in your HR and hiring and things, but it's also reflected in your governance structures. So we often start with, what is your higher purpose? Like, what is the purpose of the organization? And I'll be honest with you, there are people who are real particular about what's your mission, what's your vision, what goes in each. Usually vision is that destinational thing out in the horizon that we're working toward. Mission is, like you said, what we do every day. But all of this flows from a higher purpose. And even whether you're a business, whether you're a nonprofit, clarity on that higher purpose, alignment on that is foundational. And we should, when consultants like me come in, we should be seeing that in your guidance, your bylaws.
Exactly.
And then you can build the guidance and guardrails around it that informs hiring and things like that. So I think clarity on that foundational purpose is critical. And then from there, making sure it's reflected appropriately, mission, vision, values. Those are tools in your toolkit to advance that higher purpose.
You make a great point. And in our recently launched book, Faith-Driven HR, we have a chapter on board governance. And oftentimes people say, why is board governance in an HR book? Why would you ever do that? Well, it's in there because the board needs to memorialize your mission, vision, values.
Yep.
They need to support it and get that infused in all you do. I love that. So when we talk about drift, I think back with our company many years ago, I was in the Ukraine and there was a training and development center there to help people to grow and develop with their education. Somebody asked us to purchase that business because we could advance the kingdom in the Ukraine. It didn't align with our mission. It wasn't HR related, but I was excited and I looked at it, but I thought, wow, if I go in that direction, that's going to suck a lot of the resources out of IHNHR. Is that kind of what you're talking about? Like a simplistic view of mission drift?
Yeah, that's a great example because all of us will have those opportunities that are good things that can pull us off course. I've been doing mission drift work. I work with social enterprises, foundations, nonprofits for nearly 20 years. Last 10 years, after Peter Grier's book, Mission Drift, focusing specifically on mission drift in Christian nonprofits and businesses as well across the globe on 5 different continents. So it's interesting to see what drift looks like in all these different places. But if you can envision a triangle, I think there's 3 different buckets where drift or conversely alignment can happen. I call it my mission alignment triangle, but it could be your mission derailment triangle if you don't get the balance right. And at the top of your triangle, you have your people, and then you have your programs and you have your funding. So and making sure all those pieces are aligned, especially for the nonprofits. And so that example you just gave, what in my bucket, my view would call programmatic kind of scope creep or drift, where you start to do things that are maybe good, but not center of the bullseye for that mission, for that higher purpose that I mentioned.
Sure.
So when we start to do good things, it's exactly what you said. It's detracting from, it can detract from the mission. It can distract us. It can pull resourcing away, and it can just dilute the effectiveness of the organization overall. So you have that programmatic creep. Funding creep is common. If you have misaligned funding partners in a business, ownership partners in a nonprofit, donors, that can certainly derail your mission. That's one of the points of the triangle. And then the final one, which I think is the most important, is the people.
Sure.
Because at the end of the day, the people are the ones that make the funding and the programmatic choices. Like you said, you have the choice to invest or not invest.
Exactly.
And so I think you see drift kind of manifest in those 3 buckets: people's, programs, and funding. So that was a great example.
Thank you so much. That was on my heart this morning when I was praying about this podcast. I was thinking about my own career and my own business. What kind of mission drift? There's been a variety of them. You know, I understand the critical role of leaders and HR professionals in building organizations that cultivate and perpetuate the higher purpose. What's your viewpoint on it? How would you like to describe that to our listeners?
Right. So that mission management, mission advancement is absolutely an HR imperative. I know you know that. You and I have talked about that.
Yes.
But I think I was doing a workshop for a global organization, and I remember it was a mid-level HR manager who shared as we were processing this, and we were saying, what does drift look like in your organization? Kind of trying to help people like actually pick up examples that they might see in their day-to-day, regardless of the level. And she said, if I get one misaligned hire, that could open the door to drift in the organization.
Exactly.
And she had this real responsibility, and I couldn't agree with her more because I'm biased on this. So if you are a faith-based nonprofit, I think it's really important, if you want to preserve that faith-based Christian element, kingdom advancing element of what you do, that you hire a team members that are all on board with that.
Exactly.
And so I've gotten people into the conversation, well, what about the proverbial IT person? That person doesn't interact with clients, that person, and this has become a real issue for organizations.
Sure.
And I would say build it in your bylaws that each role is a ministerial role, and your lawyers will know what that means to build that in your bylaws that will protect you and preserve and safeguard that higher purpose, because always play out the growth scenario.
Sure.
The IT person wants to get promoted or move laterally, as a lot of people do in careers.
Exactly.
Now what happens? Are you going to hit a missional impasse with that person that you really like and love and care about? it's really better to do that hard job of bringing in a narrower pool and being patient when that limits your candidate pool, because I do think it saves you time in the end. You could always use a vendor to outsource some things if you need to.
You're making really good points, Becca, because from an HR perspective, I'm hearing two things. One, sometimes the for-profit Christian-owned business is hesitant to say that I'm a business founded on biblical principles and these are our values.
Sure.
That's okay. That's not illegal. What's illegal is to say, hey, you have to believe these values.
Correct.
And oftentimes what I've seen in organizations that we've supported in the last 25 years that are Christian-owned for-profit, when people share that out, the candidates know what they're getting themselves into.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to be hired into a company where there's not excessive drinking, there's not excessive partying, there's not all these behaviors that some employers may have as a public company. So I think it's a great forewarning. And I've had candidates go, hey, this is great. I've worked at public companies and I don't like that atmosphere. I want to work for a more kingdom organization. But the other aspect is, for a religious exempt employer, you have to define that because legally you can use that to screen candidates. Those are all really great suggestions. Can we roll into some integration questions, like how you see that? This ties right into what I was talking about with recruitment, but how do you see it integrating your mission into hiring, onboarding, and performance evaluation?
Yes, excellent question, because this is, when we survey clients, I feel like this is the question that often gets the lowest score from the team, that the mission is adequately reflected into the HR processes. One thing I will share, you talked about the difference between businesses and nonprofits. The Lead on Mission workbook has an example of bylaws of a real Christian-led business with a clear purpose to advance the kingdom of God, but they also specify that there are a few particular roles in the business that must be filled by someone that aligns with that higher purpose.
Exactly. Yep.
And so I think most businesses, to your point, don't realize they can do that.
Sure.
And it is, it's not going to be everyone. I actually appreciate talking with those Christian-led businesses where they see their workplaces, they want to bring in non-believers. They want to tell them all about the values.
Absolutely.
And share the love of Christ with them in word and deed and bring them in. But I think there are other ways when you think about actually preserving it over time, starting with that executive leadership, those key leadership positions in the board.
Absolutely. It has to be memorialized in your documents. I was talking to a business, the woman's in her 70s and her children are in their 40s. They're not running, they're using the money for things that she doesn't feel is appropriate.
Sure.
And she never memorialized. I talked to her 20 years ago. She needed to memorialize this stuff. The kids were in their 20s.
Yeah.
And now they're in their 40s. It's too late. The business will be run as a secular business moving forward. She lost the opportunity, and you need to build it into your governing documents. And it's a legal opportunity. And you know as well as I know, in Lancaster County, we have a lot of attorneys, a lot of organizations here in Lancaster that can support that. So we need to wrap things up here in just one moment. But to wrap it up, can you think about what, recognition and rewards for missional behavior, as well as some practical guides or ideas to ignite the team around the mission, vision, values?
Yes.
And we'll wrap up with this last comment.
Yes. Yeah, and before I get there, I just want to underscore what you just said. Define what is mission critical. Define those guidance and guardrail policies. We work with organizations to do that all the time, because especially how you want your philanthropy to go, what you want your business to be about or not be about, it's all in the mind of the founder. And if it's not out on paper and it's not talked about, you said memorialized, discussed, aligned, it's a real problem. And then all that kind of trickles down to what you're asking about, which is the HR practices, recognition, reward, where the rubber meets the road. And I think for the, faith-driven business, and this works for nonprofits as well, I do think values are huge. Are the values certainly in alignment with that higher purpose, even if you don't believe the same beliefs as the owner or the founder of the organization? How do we recognize and celebrate? And that will look different on a virtual team versus an in-person team. But I think in the general theme of calling out positive behaviors when you see them. I think compensation, things like that, those are important, obviously, and you can talk a lot more
Sure.
with the folks about that. But really celebrating, recognizing the positive behavior you want to see, and really making sure the values are certainly showing up in your performance reviews, in your conversations, your one-on-ones, especially if you see either people not really understanding them or deviating from them. But I think that is key.
It's excellent. Becca, you're a great guest. We'll probably have you on next year again, get an update on how the book is going. Always an encouragement, online and in person. Folks, if you hear Becca speaking, she has engagements out there, go visit her in person as she speaks. You're going to be encouraged. You're going to be really excited. All the information to track where she's speaking, how to contact her, if you need help with organizational development, feel free to reach out to her directly. All those links are in the descriptions. God bless you, Becca. Take care. Bye-bye now.
Thanks so much.
This episode of Encouragement for Work has been brought to you by Job Shepherd. Post-COVID-19 recruitment has been unquestionably hard for employers, with many struggling to find quality employees in the aftermath. Religious exempt employers have had an especially difficult time. Welcome to Job Shepherd, a platform that will change all of this for you. Job Shepherd was created to meet the demand by Christian employers, including ministries, camps, churches, colleges, and Christian for-profit companies in their search for qualified job candidates. Now, for a limited time only, employers post a job for free. Job seekers, come join us. You are always free. Learn more at www.jobshepherd.com.